Subject: Public Policy Analysis, Class, BPA 6th evening. Topic 1: Decision-making process. Topic: Outcomes. 1. Understand the importance of decision-making for planning. 2. Limitation of the rational decision-making process. 3. Approaches to decision-making. Definition. It is defined as the selection of a course of action. It is the core of planning. A plan cannot exist unless a decision has been made. Decision-making is the most important action by managers. Theories on decision-making. There are many theories of decision-making. 1. Organizational process model. 2. Rationality in decision-making. Organizational process model. All organization follows rules, procedures and system. Decisions in organizations are made according to the procedures and systems that organizations have. For example, a centralized organization's decisions will come from top-down. In an organization where authority is dispersed, participative decisions will be made. So the processes and standard operating procedure will determine the quality of decisions made. Rationality in decision-making. It is said that effective decision-making must be rational. What is rationality? People deciding rationally are attempting to reach goals in a systematic way. They collect all 1. Relevant information. 2. Analyze information. 3. Evaluate. 4. Make a choice. So these are 4 basic steps in making a rational decision. Limited rationality. People have worked on the issues pertaining to all information to be collected for all alternatives. What has been analyzed is that it is humanly impossible to collect all information for all alternatives. A manager must settle for limited rationality. Information is limited, time is limited and certainty is limited. Therefore managers dislike risk and do not reach the best solution. The decision-making is satisfying, that is, picking a course of action that is good enough. Steps in rational decision-making. 1. Search for alternatives. Given that we know our objectives, the first step in decision-making is to search for alternatives. Search for alternatives is based on the concept of the limiting factor. The principle of the limiting factor is to recognize and overcome factors that stand critically in the way of goals. The best course of action can be selected. 2. Evaluation of alternatives. The next step in decision-making is to evaluate and select one that contributes best to the goals. When deciding about one alternative, managers can use 3 basic approaches. 1. Experience. 2. Experimentation. 3. Research and analysis. Usually, managers use their experience and judgment to select an alternative. Experience and judgment are really reliant on the past. The other method by which managers select alternatives is experimentation, i.e., managers would try an alternative and see its results. The third method is arriving at alternatives through researching and analysis. Types of decision. It would be better to know the types of decisions that organizations usually take. These are 1. Programmed. 2. Non-programmed. 1. Programmed. A programmed decision is a structured or repetitive or routine decision. Example, reordering of a standard inventory item, checking at a check post. 2. Non-programmed. Non-programmed decisions are used for unstructured, novel, and ill-defined situations of non-recurring nature. Example, introduction of new products in the market, attempts to explain the problems that organizations may be confronted with, and the level at which decisions will be made. At the lowest level in hierarchy, structured and programmed decisions are made. Whereas non-programmed and unstructured decisions are made at the highest level in the organization. Decision-making situations. All decisions are made in some degree of uncertainty. Uncertainty is related to the unknown future. Certainty varies from relative certainty to uncertainty. With an increase in uncertainty, the risk increases. This increase in risk is based on the degree of information about the future. The distance the decision is to be made in the future, more uncertain is the situation. There are two methods by which the quality of decision and certainty can be improved. These are, 1. Mathematical model. Objective probabilities. 2. Judgment and experience. Subjective probabilities. Factors affecting the decision-making process. 1. Personal differences. People have different personalities, experiences, and perceptions, and that influences their decision-making. 2. Role of knowledge. The knowledge of people varies, therefore, individual managers will make a decision on the amount of knowledge they possess. 3. Institutional factors. Institutional factors such as organization structure, procedure, and system affect decision-making. 2. Good governance. What is good governance? Introduction. The concept of governance is not new. Recently the terms governance and good governance are being increasingly used in development literature. Governance. Simply put, governance means the process of decision-making and the process by which decisions are implemented or not implemented. Governance can be used in several contexts such as corporate governance, international governance, national governance, and local governance. Since governance is the process of decision-making and the process by which decisions are implemented, an analysis of governance focuses on the formal and informal actors involved in decision-making and implementing the decisions made, and the formal and informal structures that have been set in place to arrive at and implement the decision. The government is one of the actors in governance. In rural areas, for example, other actors may include influential landlords, associations of peasant farmers, cooperatives, NGOs, research institutes, religious leaders, finance institutions, political parties, the military, etc. At the national level, in addition to the above actors, media, lobbyists, international donors, multinational corporations, etc. may play a role in decision-making or in influencing the decision-making process. All actors other than the government and the military are grouped together as part of the civil society. Good governance. Good governance has 8 major characteristics. 1. Participatory. 2. Consensus-oriented. 3. Accountable. 4. Transparent. 5. Responsive. 6. Effective and efficient. 7. Equitable and inclusive. 8. Rule of law. 1. Participation. Participation by both men and women is a key cornerstone of good governance. Participation could be either direct or through legitimate intermediate institutions or representatives. Participation needs to be informed and organized. This means freedom of association and expression on the one hand and an organized civil society on the other hand. 2. Rule of law. Good governance requires fair legal frameworks that are enforced impartially. It also requires full protection of human rights, particularly those of minorities. Impartial enforcement of laws requires an independent judiciary and an impartial and incorruptible police force. 3. Transparency. Transparency means that decisions are taken and their enforcement are done in a manner that follows rules and regulations. It also means that information is freely available and directly accessible to those who will be affected by such decisions and their enforcement. It also means that enough information is provided and that it is provided in easily understandable forms and media. 4. Responsiveness. Good governance requires that institutions and processes try to serve all stakeholders within a reasonable time frame. 5. Consensus-oriented. Good governance requires mediation of the different interests in society to reach a broad consensus in society on what is in the best interest of the whole community and how this can be achieved. It also requires a broad and long-term perspective on what is needed for sustainable human development and how to achieve the goals of such development. 6. Equity and inclusiveness. A society's well-being depends on ensuring that all its members feel that they have a stake in it and do not feel excluded from the mainstream of society. This requires all groups, but particularly the most vulnerable, to have opportunities to improve or maintain their well-being. 7. Effectiveness and efficiency. Good governance means that processes and institutions produce results that meet the needs of society while making the best use of resources at their disposal. The concept of efficiency in the context of good governance also covers the sustainable use of natural resources and the protection of the environment. 8. Accountability. Accountability is a key requirement of good governance. Not only governmental institutions but also the private sector and civil society organizations must be accountable to the public and to their institutional stakeholders. In general, an organization or an institution is accountable to those who will be affected by its decisions or actions. Accountability cannot be enforced without transparency and the rule of law. Conclusion. Good governance is an ideal that is difficult to achieve in its totality. Very few countries and societies have come close to achieving good governance in its totality. However, to ensure sustainable human development, actions must be taken to work towards this ideal with the aim of making it a reality.